Ethan Cole never imagined his normal morning would end with him standing in a shining palace. On another world, his day had started in a small workshop on Earth where he worked as an engineer. He was not famous, not special, and definitely not someone who expected adventures. He simply liked machines, enjoyed fixing things, and loved testing new ideas. That was why he had built a teleportation device, even though everyone told him it was too unpredictable. The device was standing in the middle of the workshop like a tall metal ring. Ethan had connected wires, checked energy levels, and placed safety shields around the floor. Everything looked calm and ready. He pressed the activation switch with excitement. The ring began to glow with soft blue sparks. Ethan watched closely, ready to take notes, but before he could write anything down, the sparks grew brighter. They changed from blue to gold, then to a warm white light that wrapped around him. Ethan tried to step backward, but the light was faster. It touched him like a soft breeze, and suddenly the whole world disappeared in a blur of brightness. He didn't feel pain or fear, just surprise, like stepping into a warm cloud. The light faded, and Ethan opened his eyes. He was not in his workshop anymore. He stood in the middle of a huge hall, so beautiful that he forgot to breathe for a moment. The ceiling stretched above like a sky made of crystal, glowing softly with pastel colors. Floating lights drifted around like tiny suns. The walls were silver and clear like polished ice, and they reflected every sparkle and shine. He heard gentle music that sounded like glass bells and soft wind. People, well, not exactly people, stood around him. There were tall beings with soft green skin, shimmering hair, and long, delicate clothing. Some had silver patterns on their cheeks that glowed. Others had gentle golden eyes and peaceful smiles. They all wore ceremonial robes, and every guest looked as if they were part of a grand celebration. Ethan's heart jumped. Where am I? Before he could ask again, a wave of whispers filled the hall. Everyone was staring at him, not with fear, but with something like excitement. Their glances moved from him to each other, as if they had been waiting for something. A tall alien elder with lavender skin stepped forward, eyes wide with meaning. He has arrived through the light, the elder whispered. The hall gasped with soft wonder. Another voice added, The omen has come true. Ethan lifted both hands nervously. Wait, what? I think there's a mistake. I didn't, but he did not get to finish. A group of attendants surrounded him, smiling warmly. One of them placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Please, honored traveler, come with us. The attendant said with a polite bow. You are just in time. In time for what? Ethan asked, confused. The attendant smiled brightly. For the royal wedding, of course. Ethan blinked. Wedding? No, you don't understand. I was testing a machine. I didn't mean to crash anything. I think I teleported back, but they did not seem bothered by his confusion. Instead, they guided him toward the front of the hall. Ethan looked around helplessly as guests nodded and whispered. Some smiled at him with admiration. Others seemed emotional, as if his rival was touching. Ethan felt like a man who had walked into the wrong room during a performance. The hall became wider ahead, leading to a raised platform. On the platform stood a beautiful figure wearing a gown that glowed softly like starlight. She was tall with smooth silver blue skin, bright eyes like soft violet lights, and hair that flowed like liquid crystal. A delicate crown floated above her head, turning slowly. She was the Princess Lysera. She turned toward Ethan, surprise and curiosity shining in her eyes. For a moment, the hall became quiet, as if even the floating lights paused to watch. Ethan felt heat rise to his face. Hello? Lysera blinked once, her expression calm but puzzled. You came through the light gate. It was actually a teleportation accident, Ethan said nervously, but his words only made the guest whisper again. He is humble. He speaks with honesty. He accepts his destiny. Ethan wanted to drop his face into his hands. He tried again. Really, I think there's a misunderstanding. I'm not supposed to be here. Lysera took a step closer. Her voice was gentle, like soft music. What is your name, traveler? Ethan Cole. She nodded slowly. You arrived wrapped in the ceremonial light. According to our tradition, that is a sign. A chosen partner appears in light when the galaxy wishes to unite to futures. Ethan stared at her. Wait, are you saying you think I'm the groom? Someone from the crowd said proudly. Ethan's eyes widened. No, this is definitely a mistake. The elder stepped forward again. The light gate is not chosen incorrectly in centuries. It is rare, sacred, and meaningful. Ethan sighed. It's actually a malfunction, I swear. But nobody seemed offended or nervous. They only smiled as if his words were adorable. Ethan felt like he was speaking to a room full of enthusiastic dreamers, who were determined to misunderstand him in the friendliest way possible. Lysera raised a hand, calming the murmurs. She looked at Ethan carefully, studying his clothes, his simple Earth-style shirt, and the confused worry in his eyes. You look unprepared, she said softly. That's because I wasn't planning to get married today, he replied helplessly to Ethan's relief. Lysera did not laugh or scold him. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, as if trying to understand his feelings. You are not from our world, she said quietly. No, Ethan replied. I'm from Earth. It's far from here. I'm not a royal. I'm not an envoy. I just work with machines. Lysera nodded slowly again. Yet you arrived through a path that only appears for those it chooses? Ethan groaned gently. I don't think it chose me. I think it just grabbed me. The princess looked amused in a gentle, polite way. Your presence has caused great excitement. Our people believe your arrival carries meaning. Ethan looked around the grand hall again. The beauty, the music, the glowing walls, it all seemed unreal. Then he looked at Lysera, who stood with grace and calm confidence, yet with a softness in her eyes. I really didn't mean to interrupt anything, he said. You did not interrupt, Lysera replied. You began something unexpected. Before Ethan could respond, an attendant approached. Princess, shall we continue the ceremony? Lysera glanced at Ethan. There was a thoughtful look in her eyes. No, she said gently but firmly. We must give our guest time. He deserves understanding. The crowd nodded respectfully. Ethan felt a wave of relief. Lysera turned back to him. Ethan Cole of Earth, you are welcome here. You may stay as an honored guest until you understand our customs and decide your own path. Ethan nodded gratefully. Thank you. I appreciate that. Lysera offered a small smile. Come, let me show you our world. It may help you feel less lost. Ethan followed her, still overwhelmed but slowly calming. The hall buzzed with warm excitement, but now there was no pressure, only curiosity, and though he had arrived by accident, something deep in his chest told him this was the beginning of a story, much bigger than he ever imagined. Ethan Cole walked beside Princess Lysera, his eyes wide at everything he saw. The palace was bigger than any building on Earth he had ever imagined. The walls seemed alive, glowing with colors that changed slowly like the sun moving across the sky. Floating gardens hovered above, filled with flowers of shapes and colors that Ethan had never seen before. Some petals shimmered like glass, others glowed softly in the dim light. Streams of liquid light flowed through the halls, twisting and bending as they moved, reflecting patterns on the walls. Lysera noticed Ethan staring at everything in wonder. It is natural to be amazed, she said. Many of our guests feel that way. You are not used to such things. I've never seen anything like this, Ethan admitted. Even the best simulations back on Earth wouldn't show something so alive. He paused, taking a deep breath. And this teleport accident brought me here. I feel like I should be apologizing to everyone. Lysera shook her head. You do not need to apologize. The light gate chooses carefully. Even if you think it is a mistake, your presence carries meaning. Ethan looked at her, unsure what to say. He wanted to tell her the truth, that he was just a human engineer who liked machines. He wasn't meant to be a groom. He didn't understand traditions, cosmic omens, or anything about her world. Yet, Lysera walked beside him with calm confidence, as if she believed he belonged here. An attendant approached, floating slightly above the floor. Princess, the council wishes to know your decision. Will he accept the ceremony? Lysera shook her head. Not yet. He is new here. He must first understand our world. She looked at Ethan. I will show you, and then you may choose. There is no hurry, Ethan blinked. You mean I can choose? I don't have to, Lysera smiled softly. You are free to choose. That is part of our tradition. You may leave if you wish, or you may stay. The choice is yours. Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. Nobody had ever treated him with such respect, never mind in a palace full of aliens. I thank you, he said. I think I'd like to learn about your world first. Lysera nodded and led him through a hallway that opened into a huge chamber. The ceiling stretched higher than he could see, and the walls were made of smooth, luminous crystal. Transparent stairways curved upward, disappearing into the glowing mist above. Ethan noticed soft creatures moving gracefully, their wings like delicate silk, assisting guests and floating above the floors like guides. This is the Hall of Harmony, Lysera explained. Our people believe balance is the key to understanding. Here, we study light, music, and motion to maintain peace and knowledge. Ethan's eyes followed her words, watching as patterns of light moved along the walls, creating shapes and symbols. So, you learn through light? Like, it stores information? Yes, Lysera replied. We call it the Melody Archive. Each melody contains knowledge, history, or wisdom. Our students practice learning from it every day. She gestured to a floating cluster of glowing notes. Ethan could almost hear the soft hum of stories in the light. It's beautiful, Ethan said, smiling. Back on Earth, we have books, videos, but nothing like this. This is alive. Lysera laughed softly, a sound like gentle chimes. It is alive because we treat it as a living thing. Respect gives life to knowledge. Ethan shook his head in disbelief. I never thought I'd walk into a palace and learn about living music. They walked farther, and Ethan noticed small children with sparkling eyes practicing with floating orbs that hovered around them. They laughed and moved with the orbs as if they were dancing partners. Ethan watched them with fascination. Do they all learn this way? He asked. Yes, Lysera said. From the moment they can walk, they study harmony. But it is not forced. Learning is guided by curiosity and joy. Ethan thought of Earth's classrooms. Rows of desks, strict schedules, and tests. I wish we could do something like this back home, he said quietly. It seems happy, peaceful. Lysera's eyes softened. Perhaps one day, humans and our people will exchange ideas. That is why your arrival is important. Your presence reminds us that unity can happen between worlds. Ethan blinked. You mean me? I'm just me. You are more than just you, Lysera said gently. Your honesty, your humility, and your curiosity bring value. Sometimes small things matter more than grandeur. They reached a balcony overlooking a garden that floated above the palace. Light streams wove through the flowers, making patterns like moving constellations. Ethan felt a thrill he could not explain. This is incredible, he said. Do people actually live here? Lysera nodded. Yes, families, scholars, and travelers like you. This is our home. Ethan laughed softly. I feel like I accidentally walked into a fairy tale. Lysera's smile widened. Perhaps you did. For a moment, silence settled between them, not awkward, but peaceful. Ethan realized he didn't have to rush, didn't have to explain everything, and didn't have to be the perfect guest or groom. He could simply learn. Just then, an elder approached. His skin glowed faintly, and he held a small crystal tablet in his hands. Princess Lysera, the council is curious. What shall we do about the groom chosen by the light gate? Lysera glanced at Ethan. We wait, she said calmly. He must choose for himself. Ethan felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. Wait, so I actually have a choice? Yes, Lysera replied. You may stay, learn, and understand. Or you may leave and return to your world. We respect free will. Ethan swallowed hard. That's very kind. On Earth, I'm used to rules, deadlines, and, I don't know, procedures. Not choices like this. Lysera laughed softly. Choices are gifts. Sometimes accidents bring unexpected gifts. Ethan couldn't help but smile. I guess I'm glad I accidentally ended up here. Lysera looked at him, her expression curious. You speak as if this was a mistake. Yet you are learning, observing, and understanding. That is not a mistake. Perhaps it was. Destiny in disguise. The words made Ethan pause. Destiny? He had never believed in it, but being here, seeing her world, feeling welcome. It did feel like something bigger than himself. They continued walking through the palace. Each room was a new wonder. One had walls made entirely of floating lights that displayed scenes from other planets. Another contained a library of holographic books, each one singing softly as pages turned. Ethan could hardly keep up, yet he tried to absorb everything. Lysera noticed. Do you feel overwhelmed? She asked just. Amazed, Ethan admitted. It's a lot to take in. That is natural, she said. Our world is vast. But do not worry. Take your time. Learn at your pace. They paused in a quiet room filled with soft floating pools of light. These are the reflection pools, Lysera explained. They help visitors understand themselves. Look if you wish, or simply rest. Ethan peered into a pool. The light shimmered, showing not just his reflection, but soft images of his thoughts machines. Earth, and the morning before his teleport accident. He realized he had never thought of himself as important or capable of adventure. Yet here he was, in a palace on another world, walking beside a princess. Chosen by fate or accident for something meaningful, Lysera watched him quietly. You are kind, curious, and open-hearted. These qualities matter more than any ceremony. Ethan felt warmth fill him. For the first time, he didn't feel like a mistake, a failure, or a nobody. He felt noticed. He felt welcomed. And he realized that perhaps, just perhaps, he could face whatever came next with courage. At that moment, an attendant arrived, floating gracefully. Princess, the ceremony may begin soon. Guests await your presence. Lysera nodded. We will go together. But you need not act as groom unless you choose. This is your freedom. Ethan nodded slowly. Thank you. I want to see the ceremony. Maybe it will help me understand everything better. Lysera smiled softly. Then come, let us see it together. As they walked toward the hall again, Ethan felt a strange mix of nerves and excitement. The palace, the lights, the music, and Lysera herself all were breathtaking. And for the first time in his life, he felt that being part of something bigger than himself wasn't scary, it was inspiring. And though he still didn't fully understand why he had arrived, Ethan Cole realized that this accidental journey might be the beginning of something extraordinary. Ethan followed Princess Lysera through the palace corridors, his mind racing with questions and wonder. Every turn revealed something new. Gardens that floated in midair, corridors of softly glowing crystal, and rooms where the walls hummed with gentle music. Each step reminded him that he had left Earth entirely behind and entered a world of beauty and harmony he had only imagined in dreams. Lysera walked gracefully beside him, her movements calm and deliberate. She noticed the awe in his eyes, but she didn't seem impatient or judgmental. Ethan realized that here, people moved and spoke with patience. It was a pace he had never experienced on Earth, where everything felt rushed and noisy. Ethan, Lysera said, her voice soft like music, what do you think of our palace so far? Ethan paused, searching for words. It's been incredible. Everything is so alive, so peaceful. I've never seen anything like it on Earth. Even the technology you use feels natural, not forced. It's beautiful. Lysera smiled. Our technology grows with the world, not against it. We strive for balance in all things. Humans are different, yes? Ethan laughed nervously. We're a little messy. Creative, sometimes, but messy. We invent amazing things, but we also make mistakes, often big ones. That is human, Lysera said with a gentle chuckle. Your creativity is admirable. Even your mistakes show courage. It is why your arrival feels meaningful. Perhaps our worlds can learn from each other. They reached a circular balcony overlooking the palace gardens. The gardens floated above the city like constellations of color. Flowers in soft blues, violets, and golds glimmered under the sun that seemed to shine without harsh heat. Streams of glowing water wound through the floating platforms, and small creatures with delicate wings flew gracefully around the blossoms. Do you see? Lysera asked. Our people live in harmony with nature, with light, and with music. Everything here has meaning. Even a small flower may teach lessons of patience, growth, and balance. Ethan stepped closer to the railing, leaning over slightly to watch the streams of glowing water. It's amazing. On Earth, people spend hours and hours trying to control nature. You seem to live with it, Lysera nodded. Control is less important than understanding. Harmony comes when we respect life, not dominate it. Ethan smiled quietly, thinking of his life back home. He had always been practical, focused on machines, tasks, and deadlines. Yet here, surrounded by floating gardens, glowing pools, and a princess who seemed to understand both worlds, he felt a different kind of wonder. Do you ever feel trapped by tradition? He asked suddenly, curious. Lysera's gaze softened. At times, yes. Our traditions are beautiful, but they also create expectations. I was to marry a noble from another world, a union arranged long before I could speak my own mind. I did not know if I could choose for myself. Ethan's eyes widened. Really, but you're the princess. You can do anything, right? Lysera laughed softly. I may be a princess, but freedom is not automatic. Responsibilities are heavy, even in a world of beauty. That is why your arrival has been strange, yet enlightening. The light gate does not choose lightly. Perhaps it brought you here so I could see possibilities I had never considered. Ethan felt his chest tighten. He had never expected to have this kind of conversation with anyone, least of all an alien princess. So, you don't have to go through with the marriage if you don't want to? He asked cautiously. Lysera shook her head. Tradition is important, but choice matters more. The ceremony can wait. I can decide what I truly wish. That is why you are here, not only as an accidental guest, but as a reminder that choice is possible. Ethan swallowed. He felt a strange responsibility. He hadn't come here intentionally. He had not meant to step into someone else's life. Yet somehow, his rival gave Lysera freedom and clarity. It was humbling. Wow, Ethan whispered. I didn't think a mistake could turn into something meaningful. Lysera smiled warmly. Sometimes accidents carry the greatest meaning. It is not always the path we plan, but the path we walk that matters. They walked through another corridor, this one filled with small hovering orbs that projected soft holograms. Each orb contained images, stories, or lessons from her world. Ethan reached out and touched one. It shifted, showing a small village where beings lived in harmony with nature, laughing and learning together. This is incredible, Ethan said, mesmerized. It's like you're showing the whole world at once. Yes, Lysera said. It is important to understand our history, our mistakes, and our successes. That is how we grow. They arrived at a room filled with floating tables, where her people practiced art, music, and science together. Lysera guided Ethan to a simple work table. Would you like to try? She asked. Ethan hesitated. Try what? Anything, Lysera replied. Music, art, light patterns. There is no right or wrong, only learning and discovery. Ethan sat down, feeling nervous. He had built machines his whole life, but he had never experimented like this. A small sphere of light floated in front of him. When he touched it, it split into streams of colored light that responded to his hand movements. Slowly, he learned to move it, shaping patterns and sounds. Lysera watched quietly, impressed. You have a natural connection with energy and light. Humans are often so practical, yet you are creative as well. That is rare. Ethan laughed nervously. I guess I'm learning. You are learning more than patterns, Lysera said softly. You are learning about connection, awareness, and patience. These are valuable lessons. Ours seemed to pass in what felt like minutes. Ethan lost track of time as he experimented with light, sound, and movement. He laughed when patterns tangled and created funny shapes. He was amazed when streams of light responded perfectly to his touch. And all the while, Lysera guided him gently, offering advice, but never forcing him. Finally, Ethan leaned back, exhausted but happy. I never imagined learning could be this fun, Lysera smiled. Learning should bring joy. That is why our people thrive. Knowledge is not punishment. It is life. Ethan nodded, thinking of Earth's classrooms and offices. Perhaps his world had missed something important. Harmony and creativity were just as important as work and logic. Lysera glanced at him with a thoughtful expression. Ethan, you have a good heart. Your curiosity and kindness are rare, perhaps. Your presence here is not only for my understanding, but for yours as well. Ethan felt a warmth in his chest he could not explain. Somehow, her words were comforting, inspiring, and humbling all at once. I don't know what to say. Say nothing, Lysera said gently. Actions matter more than words, and you have acted with honesty, humility, and courage simply by being yourself. Ethan looked at her, realizing that despite the grand palace, the floating gardens, and the glowing halls, it was her words, her kindness, and her wisdom that impressed him most. He had never met someone like her before, and he felt understood. Lysera led him to a quiet balcony overlooking the palace city below. The sun was setting, casting warm golden light over floating towers, rivers of glowing energy, and gardens suspended in air. Ethan breathed deeply, feeling the calm energy of the place. This is incredible, he whispered. Lysera nodded. It is beautiful, yes, but beauty is not only in places or objects. Beauty is in understanding, respect, and connection. You have already discovered some of that today. Ethan smiled. I hope I can learn more. You will, Lysera said. There is much to see, much to understand. And perhaps, by learning about each other, humans and my people can find ways to grow together. Ethan felt a sense of purpose he had never known before. He had arrived here by accident, yet now he realized that accidents could change lives, not only his own, but those of others. Lysera turned to him with a gentle, curious expression. Do you feel ready to return to the ceremony hall? Ethan nodded. Yes, I think. I want to see what happens next. And maybe understand why I'm here. Together, they walked back toward the grand hall. Ethan knew that the next steps would be important. The guests awaited, the ceremony was near, and the choices before him were real. Yet, for the first time, he did not feel fear. He felt curiosity, courage, and excitement for the journey ahead. As they approached the hall, Ethan took one last glance at the palace gardens floating above. He realized that this world, Lysera, and the unexpected path he had walked into might be the beginning of something extraordinary. And for the first time in his life, he was ready to face whatever came next. Ethan Cole walked beside Princess Lysera toward the grand hall, his mind heavy with thoughts. The palace corridors glowed softly in the evening light, and the floating gardens swayed gently above them, casting delicate reflections on the crystal floors. Every step reminded him that he had traveled far from Earth, far from everything familiar. Yet, he did not feel fear. Instead, he felt a strange mix of curiosity, excitement, and a little uncertainty. Lysera's presence was calming. She walked beside him with quiet grace, as if she had known him for a long time. Though they had only met hours ago, her violet eyes glimmered softly in the dim light, and her soft smile encouraged him without words. Ethan, she said gently, the ceremony is about to begin. But I want to ask you something first. Ethan stopped walking and looked at her. Ask me anything. Lysera's expression turned thoughtful. You could return to your world, or you could stay. Both are acceptable. I want to know. Do you wish to stay here, beside me, or return to Earth? Ethan swallowed. He had expected to enjoy the palace, learn about her world, and understand her people, but now the question felt real. He had a choice, and for the first time in his life, a choice seemed larger than himself. I don't know, he admitted honestly. Everything is so new. Your world, your people, and you. I didn't plan to come here. I didn't plan to be part of any ceremony. I just arrived. Lysera nodded slowly. And yet your arrival has changed everything, even my perspective. You see, Ethan, I was prepared to follow tradition, to marry someone chosen long ago. But your presence reminds me that choice matters. That destiny is not always fixed. That, perhaps, The path we wish for ourselves is more important than the path chosen for us. Ethan's heart raced. He had never met anyone who spoke with such honesty and thoughtfulness. On Earth, people rarely pause to reflect in this way. Yet here, in this palace of light and floating gardens, every word seemed meaningful. Every action important. I don't want to interfere, Ethan said quietly. I didn't come here to change anything. I was just trying to test a machine. Lysera smiled softly. And yet, sometimes the smallest actions have the greatest consequences. Your arrival is not interference. It is opportunity. It is a chance for me to see a new possibility. For both of us, Ethan blinked. Both of us? Yes, Lysera said gently. You have a kind heart, and your curiosity is rare. Your presence brings perspective. Perhaps one day, humans and my people could work together. Your stay here could mark the beginning of something wonderful. Ethan swallowed, feeling a mixture of excitement and pressure. He had never felt responsible for someone else's choices before, not like this. Not for a princess, not for an entire world. And yet, her words were encouraging, not demanding. Lysera reached out, gently touching his hand. I did not ask for your decision now, but I want you to consider it carefully. Think not only of your own world, but also of what could happen here. Sometimes, choosing to stay is not about obligation, it is about curiosity, growth, and friendship. Ethan looked at her hand, then at her eyes, and felt warmth rise in his chest. I need time, he said softly. Take all the time you need, Lysera replied. I will wait. They entered the grand hall, where the guests had gathered, waiting patiently. The floating lights shimmered in anticipation, and the soft music from the earlier celebration returned, creating a gentle rhythm that filled the room. Ethan felt every gaze upon him, yet he did not feel judged. The people looked at him with calm curiosity, respect, and quiet hope. The elder of the palace stepped forward, his lavender skin glowing faintly. Princess Lysera, honored guest, the time is near. Will you speak to the assembly? Lysera nodded, her eyes briefly meeting Ethan's. Yes, she said. She raised her hands, and the room fell silent. Guests of many worlds, she began, her voice melodic and calm. Today was meant to be a traditional ceremony, a celebration of union. But fate has brought something unexpected, a guest from a distant world, who arrived through the light gate. His arrival reminds us that choice is the most powerful force we have. He reminds us that connections can be made freely, not only by tradition. The room murmured in agreement. Ethan felt a warm sense of relief. He had worried about offending them, about appearing clumsy or unworthy. But instead, he realized they valued honesty, humility, and respect, qualities he had always taken for granted. Lysera turned to him. Ethan Cole, you have traveled far. You have seen our world, met our people, and learned our ways. You have been honest, gentle, and curious. And now, the choice is yours, to stay and explore what this connection may bring, or to return to your home. Ethan felt every heartbeat in his chest. He wanted to speak, but words failed him for a moment. He looked around the hall, seeing faces filled with hope and respect. He looked at Lysera, standing with quiet strength, giving him the freedom to decide. Finally, he found his voice. I want to stay, not because I was chosen or expected to, but because I want to learn. I want to understand your world, and I want to see what we can create together. A gentle smile spread across Lysera's face. The guests clapped softly, their voices filled with approval and joy. Ethan felt a sense of relief and excitement. He had made a choice, not an easy one, but a meaningful one. Lysera stepped closer to him. Then let our time together begin with respect, curiosity, and friendship. This is not just a ceremony. It is a beginning. Ethan nodded. A beginning, he repeated, feeling the weight and promise of the words. The elder stepped forward. Then, with consent and understanding, we honor this union not as tradition demands, but as choice allows. Let the unity bond commence. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Unity bond? He whispered. Lysera's violet eyes sparkled. A bond of understanding and respect. Not a marriage in the old sense, but a promise to learn, grow, and share knowledge between worlds. You chose freely, Ethan. That is what makes it real. Ethan felt a surge of warmth and excitement. He had never expected to be part of anything like this, yet now he understood. This was not about ceremony, appearances, or obligation. It was about choice, curiosity, and mutual respect. And for the first time, he felt that being here was exactly where he belonged. The guests cheered softly, and music filled the hall again. Lights danced above them, forming patterns that reflected the bond being created. Ethan looked at Lysera, and she smiled back, her eyes full of calm assurance. "This is incredible," Ethan whispered. Lysera laughed softly. "Yes, and it is only the beginning. There's much to explore, learn, and understand together." Ethan nodded, feeling a new sense of purpose. He realized that his accidental rival was no longer a mistake. It was a chance and opportunity to grow, to connect, and to make a difference in a world larger than himself. As the ceremony continued, Ethan felt a deep sense of belonging. He had chosen this path, not because tradition demanded it, but because curiosity, respect, and friendship guided him. He had chosen freely, and that made all the difference. Lysera turned to him once more. "Ethan, do you understand why you were brought here?" Ethan thought for a moment. "I think, yes. It wasn't just an accident. It was an opportunity, and I'm ready to make the most of it." Lysera nodded, her smile radiant. "Then let us walk this path together as friends, learners, and explorers. Whatever comes next, we will face it side by side." Ethan felt a sense of excitement and calm at the same time. He had never imagined that a teleport accident could lead to this moment. But now, he realized that sometimes accidents were the most meaningful events of all. The lights above them shifted, forming a swirling pattern of colors and shapes that seemed to celebrate their decision. Music filled the hall, soft yet powerful, creating a rhythm that echoed in Ethan's chest. He looked at Lysera again, and she met his gaze with understanding. Words were not necessary. The bond they had chosen was clear, honest, and full of possibility. Ethan felt a quiet thrill. He had chosen to stay. He had chosen curiosity, understanding, and friendship. And in doing so, he had discovered a world far beyond his imagination and a chance to grow in ways he had never dreamed of. As the guests cheered, Ethan realized that the journey ahead was only beginning. The palace, the gardens, and the floating lights were incredible, but the most extraordinary part was the connection he had made, the choice he had embraced, and the world of possibilities waiting to unfold. And for the first time in his life, Ethan felt that destiny, whether by accident or design, was not something that happened to him. It was something he could shape with courage, curiosity, and heart. The grand hall glowed with soft lights that moved like gentle waves across the ceiling. Guests from dozens of worlds had gathered, each shimmering with unique colors, patterns, and forms. Ethan Cole stood beside Princess Lysera, taking a deep breath. He had never imagined that a teleportation accident could lead him to this moment-to-moment. That was not simply a ceremony, but the beginning of something far greater. Lysera's violet eyes met his, calm and encouraging. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. Ethan nodded. "Yes, I think I understand now. This is about choice, respect, and friendship. I'm ready to see what it becomes." The elder of the palace stepped forward, holding a crystal staff that radiated soft light. "Honored guests, the unity bond is about to begin," he announced. "This bond is not a tradition of marriage in the old sense, but a symbol of understanding, cooperation, and connection between worlds. Today, we witness the meeting of two hearts, one from Earth and one from our world. They have chosen freely, and that choice is what we honor." Ethan felt the thrill in his chest. This was not about obligation or expectation. It was about the possibility of learning, growing, and creating together. He looked at Lysera and smiled. She returned it, her expression warm, calm, and full of trust. Lysera stepped forward, holding a small orb of glowing light. "This orb represents our connection," she explained. "It is a symbol of harmony, curiosity, and friendship. By holding it together, we commit to understanding, learning, and exploring side by side." Ethan reached out, his hand hovering over the orb. As soon as his fingers touched it, the light expanded, swirling around them in vibrant colors. The colors reflected in the hall, creating patterns of soft gold, violet, and blue. The guests gasped in admiration. "Do you feel it?" Lysera asked. "The light responds to intention, to honesty, to choice." Ethan nodded. "I feel it. It's like it's alive, reacting to how I feel." Lysera's smile widened. "Exactly. This is the first step of our unity bond. We share understanding, not only with each other, but with the worlds around us. Let the light show our intent." Ethan focused on his feelings: honesty, curiosity, respect, and hope. The orb's colors shifted, flowing around him and Lysera like a gentle river of energy. Soft music rose in the hall, notes floating through the air like delicate threads of sound. Guests watched in wonder as the light and music intertwined. "You see, Ethan," Lysera said softly, "this bond is not about tradition or ceremony. It is about choice and about the paths we create together. The light gate brought you here. Yes, but it is your choice that makes this real." Ethan swallowed, feeling a mixture of awe and warmth. I understand. I'm not here because I was chosen by accident. I'm here because I choose to be. I want to learn, to grow, and to understand." Lysera nodded, her expression gentle. "And I choose the same, not because tradition demands it, but because it feels right. Because curiosity, respect, and friendship guide us." The elder stepped forward again. "Then let the unity bond be recognized." The orb of light expanded, sending soft waves across the hall. Flowers floated higher in the air, streams of glowing water twisted gracefully, and the music swelled in harmony. Ethan and Lysera raised their joined hands, and the energy of the orb spread across the guests. They felt it as well, a gentle warmth that seemed to invite understanding, trust, and hope. "This is amazing," Ethan whispered, gazing at the patterns of light swirling around them. Lysera smiled. "It is only the beginning. Our bond is a promise not of possession or obligation, but of learning, growing, and exploring together. It is a symbol of what can happen when worlds respect each other." The guests clapped and cheered softly, their voices blending with the music. Some released small floating lights into the air, adding to the shimmering glow. Ethan felt a sense of joy he had never experienced before. This was more than a ceremony. It was a moment of connection, discovery, and hope. After the initial celebration, Lysera led Ethan through the palace gardens once more. The floating gardens had changed slightly in the evening light, glowing softly with hues of violet and gold. Streams of water reflected the stars beginning to appear in the sky. "Do you feel overwhelmed?" Lysera asked. "Just amazed," Ethan admitted. "Everything is so beautiful, and the ceremony. It wasn't what I expected, but it was perfect. I think I understand now. It's about meaning, not tradition." "Yes," Lysera said softly. "The meaning comes from choice, respect, and intention. And your choice was brave. You accepted not because you were told to, but because you wanted to. That is why this bond is real." Ethan looked at her, feeling a quiet sense of happiness and pride. "I never imagined that a mistake, teleportation accident could lead to something like this. I'm grateful." Lysera smiled, her eyes reflecting the floating lights around them. "Sometimes accidents carry the greatest opportunities. Sometimes the unplanned path is the one that teaches us the most." Ethan nodded, taking in the gardens, the floating streams of light, and the gentle music that still filled the air. I want to help bridge our worlds, learn from yours, and maybe share what I know about Earth as well." "That is a wonderful intention," Lysera said, "and it aligns perfectly with the spirit of the unity bond. Knowledge, understanding, and friendship, these are the gifts we share." They continued walking, and Ethan realized he had never felt such peace and clarity. The palace, the floating gardens, and the music were extraordinary. But the most remarkable part was the connection he had formed with Lysera and the understanding. That came from choice, not obligation. As they returned to the grand hall, Ethan noticed children playing in the floating gardens, their laughter mingling with the soft music. He saw guests sharing knowledge, exchanging ideas, and enjoying the harmony of the evening. It was a celebration of learning, respect, and curiosity, not just a ceremony for two individuals, but a festival for all. Lysera turned to him. "Do you see what this means?" she asked. "The unity bond is not only for us. It is for everyone who wishes to understand, to explore, and to grow. It is a beginning for all our worlds." Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of purpose he had never known. "I understand, and I want to be part of it, not as a guest, but as someone who learns, contributes, and shares. I want to help make this bond meaningful for everyone." Lysera's eyes sparkled. "Then you have chosen wisely, and together we can discover new possibilities, explore unknown worlds, and learn from each other. The future is bright, Ethan, because it begins with choice and understanding." The elder stepped forward once more. "Let the celebration continue. Let the lights, music, and joy spread across our worlds. Today marks not only a unity bond, but the promise of friendship, curiosity, and cooperation between Earth and our people." Guests cheered, releasing glowing lights that floated above the hall like tiny stars. Music rose in a symphony of colors, reflecting in the eyes of humans and aliens alike. Ethan felt a rush of happiness and wonder. He had never imagined being part of anything so extraordinary. Lysera gently took his hand. "Are you ready for what comes next?" she asked. "I am," Ethan said, smiling. I am ready for anything, as long as we face it together." Lysera's smile deepened. "Then let us begin this journey, not as tradition demands, but as our hearts choose. Together, we will explore, learn, and grow." The hall shimmered with light, music, and laughter. Ethan felt a sense of belonging unlike anything he had known. He realized that this was not the end of an accident, it was the start of a new beginning. Together, Ethan and Lysera walked through the hall, their hands joined, their spirits lifted. They were no longer strangers, no longer accidental participants, but companions in a journey of understanding, learning, and friendship. As the evening progressed, guests from many worlds joined in dances, games, and exchanges of knowledge. Ethan laughed, shared ideas, and learned more about Lysera's people. The floating gardens glowed with the colors of joy and connection. Every moment felt alive, meaningful, and full of hope. Ethan realized that the unity bond was more than a ceremony. It was a reminder that choice, respect, curiosity, and understanding could create something beautiful, even in the most unexpected circumstances. And for the first time in his life, he understood something profound. Sometimes accidents are not mistakes at all, they are beginnings of adventures, friendships, and possibilities beyond imagination. As the lights of the floating gardens reflected on the crystal floors, Ethan looked at Lysera and smiled. Together, they had chosen a path not of obligation, but of curiosity and understanding. Together, they would explore the worlds ahead, sharing knowledge, laughter, and hope. And in that moment, the palace, the guests, and the glowing lights all seemed to whisper the same truth. The journey had just begun. Ethan, once an accidental guest, was now a chosen companion, a friend, and a symbol of unity. And as he stood beside Lysera, he knew that the future was bright, full of learning, adventure, and endless possibilities.